Hey there guys, Ignite here and welcome back to a brand new top 10 video. Man, has been a while since I've done one of these, but topic for today's top 10 is none other than the top 10 most improved upon Skylanders, in my personal opinion. So basically, this list is going to be based upon a Skylander that has been improved as they've gone through the different iterations of a franchise. So sometimes when Skylanders get reposes, their physical figurines and their powers get better with the use of better molds and better wow pow abilities. So those kind of improvements are taken into consideration for this list, as well as entire reincarnations of characters, specifically Superchargers, because sometimes they take a character that I really didn't like before and made them incredibly awesome in Skander Superchargers, as you're about to find out once we get into the list. So basically what I'm saying here is that the Skylanders which have improved the most over the run of this series will be featured in this top 10 countdown. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting us off at number 10, we have Series 4 Kyogre. Now, when Series 1 Kyogre came out, I thought, how can you possibly improve upon this character? He is very awesome as is. And the Series 2 and Series 3 didn't really create that many improvements for me. His poses were still kind of generic and didn't stand out too much from the original pose. And their wow pals also weren't that memorable to me. However, right as I thought Kyogre couldn't be improved anymore, this character came out as part of Skander's Trap Team, and I tell you what, this is why Kyogre deserves a Series 4 right here, because he is on top of a flipping water dragon. How can you not love that? It adds so much to his mold overall, and his wow power is awesome, since that water dragon which you can summon is not only a memorable new power to this guy's arsenal, but it's also incredibly powerful and just so much fun to use. So above all, this specific incarnation of Kyogre improves upon previous iterations of Kyogre because it takes what works about this character so well and makes it more memorable and packages it in a much better moveset with a much more awesome pose on top of all of that. So that is why Kyogre is number 10 on the list. Number 9 is Drill Sergeant. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy still sucks. He's not a very good Skander in my personal opinion. However, what I can give him is the fact that he has improved between his Series 1 and Series 2 forms, because basically, this dude's wow power creates for a much more powerful gun, as you can see up here. And so basically, that makes him a whole lot more effective in combat and actually makes me want to utilize him more than his Series 1 counterpart. So basically what I'm saying here is that a little power addition is all what this guy needs to go from being absolutely awful to at least bearable to play as. So whilst not a perfect Skander, which is why he's as high on the list as he is, he has at least improved over time. As for number 8, we have Prison Break, another character that follows in the trend of Kyogre from before, where basically he's this high on the list because he started out pretty good in my personal opinion. I've always loved Prison Break from the first day I bought him, despite what most other people would say about him. But basically, what makes this character so improved over the original pose is that they took everything that was great about the Series 1 figurine and not only made the Series 2 figurine have all of that greatness in its digital format, but also its physical format. So as you can see, there's absolutely tons going on in one pose. There is no pose in Skylanders that is able to add this much detail into one figurine, because as you can see, he's in his summoning animation while he's roaring at his enemies, and he also has these awesome crystal spikes on his base, and the best part of all is his crystal backpack towards the back. So above all, I just love this figure and how much detail I was able to cram into this one figurine right here. And then not to mention, this guy has one of the best wow pals in the entirety of the franchise, because it takes what was so powerful about his beams before and makes them even more powerful, because basically his wow power allows him to create a mega beam, and of course if you have several crystals summoned, you can create a mega beam that's reflected through all these crystals. So basically, if you have multiple enemies in front of you, I guarantee you that every single one of those enemies will be taken out in a snap, thanks to the refraction of so much of that power. So above all, his wow power is an extremely redeeming factor to this character, and above all, whilst he didn't need too much improvement, he has improved in so many ways, not only because of that wow power, but because of the awesome and detailed additions to his pose. In at number 7, we have Hornhorn Camo. Now, the original Camo was a very good Skander, I will admit, and he does, once again, follow in on the trends of Kyogre and Prison Break, with the fact that for Series 1, Camo didn't really need improvements, but when this Skander was released, I realised that we got improvements for Camo that I didn't even know I wanted. This guy's Wow Pow is very, very fun. It's awesome to see his little firecracker vines explode, and not only is it a fun ability that really mixes in well with his character, but it's also an extremely powerful one, so it's efficient to use in combat over more. And not to mention, on top of that, his pose is very well done. This is one of the better transitions from Series 1 to Series 2, at least in terms of the posing, mind you, because just like Prison Break, they add in a lot of awesome little details to this figurine right here, which is why it's made number 7 on the list, overmore. At number 6, we have our first Supercharger, Lava Lance Raptor. Now, the first Raptor was fairly mediocre, so I didn't really find much wrong with him, but at the same time, there was plenty that could be improved. His speed was most certainly one of those aspects for improvement, and that's where this character excels. It took the original Raptor's design and made it so much more awesome. I really love the lance that makes him have that night feel, but at the same time, his vehicle is a burn cycle, well, a motorcycle called the burn cycle, and so having that mohawk and the cycling helmet on top of that adds a lot of detail to the design and a lot of thought went into that design as well. And then once we get down to the moveset, as I was saying before, the original Raptor was very slow, which I really did not appreciate, but this Raptor, however, is very fast. He's a very fast-paced character, and above all, the additions made to his moveset were very fun and effective to use overmore. So this Supercharger form of Raptor, Lava Lance Raptor, has turned a Raptor from a mediocre Skander into a very good Skander. Then, moving on to number 5, we have none other than Shroom Boom, as you can see before you, or Sure Shot Shroom Boom to be exact. Watch out, because he's ready to fling at you right there. But I will admit that when it comes to this guy's posing, it is spectacular, a huge improvement over the first, because it added in what made this character shine in the first iteration of him from Giants, the Self Slingshot. And not only that, but it also links into the Wow Pow itself, so it's a very well designed repose. And speaking of that Wow Pow, it allows Shroom Boom to launch between mushrooms like he's in some sort of pinball machine, and it is awesome. That is how you take a base character as mediocre as Shroom Boom was, because yes, I do agree with most people that he is a mediocre Skander. And then you just expand upon that in so many great ways to make this character all the more fun and make his personality shine through his figurine even more than what it did before. So what I'm saying here is that Shroom Boom is number 5 on the list purely because of the fact he's gone from a mediocre Skander to a really, really good Skander, thanks to the improvements in both his pose and that awesome Wow Power ability that adds so much more fun to this guy's moveset than what anyone would have ever expected. As for number 4, we have yet another Life Skander, known as Stump Smash. Now, I'm going to be honest with you here, Stump Smash and Skylanders Spice Adventure I was not a huge fan of. I did enjoy his power, but just like a Raptor, I found him way too slow for my personal taste, and whenever a life element area popped up, I was always playing as either Zook or Stealth Elf over this character. However, then I bought his Series 2, and man, did I enjoy his character after that. So I fully upgraded him down the Acorn's path, and then I acquired his Wow Power, and then I realised that combining his Wow Power with the Acorn path makes him spit out acorns at an immense rate, which will absolutely annihilate your enemies. So now, he's gone from being a pretty powerful character to a very powerful character who would rival that of the Giants in that game. And then also, his posing is also very, very cool. He looks a whole lot more intimidating like that. He definitely looks like a Skander that you'd want to play as now, because before he just looked very basic, but now he looks like he's a whole lot much more fun to play as. So, this guy has definitely improved thanks to the help of his Wow Power abilities, and of course, his new pose. Coming in at number 3, we have Double Trouble. Easily one of my favourite Skanders, although When I first got him back at Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, I never would have said that, because when I first got him in Spyro's Adventure, he was easily my least favourite Magic Skylander, because once again, common flaw of the characters here, he was slow, and he wasn't awfully powerful in that game. The beam didn't do that much damage, his doubles weren't very effective, and his magic bombs weren't good unless he went down the magic bomb path. But then his Series 2 form came out, and it turns out that combining his Series 2 Wow Power with the doubles path makes for an unstoppable beast, even on Nightmare mode, because basically his Wow Power allows his beam to split between enemies, and that makes him more effective at dealing with more than one enemy at a time. So the Series 1 form was pretty cool, I will admit, when it came to dealing with one enemy at once, but if there was multiple enemies, this guy would struggle. Now, that is a problem of the past for this guy, because that Wow Power just, as I said before, annihilates multiple enemies at once. And so above all, that Wow Power makes this guy a whole lot more fun, a whole lot more effective, and above all, it really improves upon the first character's potential, adding in a double to even its figurine. And not to mention the fact they are looking at each other, you know, really symbolises the strength in their relationship and everything, as I've talked about several times with this guy's design. So above all, I just love the improvements made from a transition of Series 1 Double Trouble to the Series 2 version of him, which is why Double Trouble is number 3 on the list right here. As for number 2, we have Stealth Elf. Now, I have never adored Stealth Elf. I've never found her extremely overpowering or extremely fun. I found her more generic, more so than anything, because it's literally just an elf in a costume that does stealth things. You know, they literally call her Stealth Elf and everything. And so basically, naturally, I found her very overrated in that regard, because clearly she was receiving more love than she deserved. But then her Superchargers form came out and gave her a turret of all things. She is awesome in this form, I've got to admit. So this turned Stealth Elf for me from an overrated character who wasn't bad, simply just overrated, to a character who is deserving of her love and her appreciation, at least in my personal opinion, anyways. So yes, this form added a lot to Stealth Elf. It made her a whole lot more acrobatic, which felt way more fitting for this character, especially in terms of her design, which that in it of itself was highly improved upon. But that canon just made her gameplay a whole lot more fun, even if it wasn't as overpowering as the original Stealth Elf was at times. As for number 1, we have Series 2 Igniter, and I'm just joking, guys. Igniter can't be on this list simply because he's too perfect, and he can't improve upon something that's already perfect to begin with. Hence why Igniter wasn't actually classed for this list, because he was just too perfect to begin with. So how can you improve upon something that's as perfect as this guy is from the get-go? And then there's also Pop Fizz right here, who this guy is also not number 1. But I thought I'd give him an honourable mention right here, because if this was the final form of Pop Fizz, he easily would have made it past number 5 on the list, because basically Pop Fizz's, the whole idea behind him is the fact he has 2 forms, and yet it took us all the way up to the Trap Team until we actually got Pop Fizz's second form, his Beast form, as a figurine in it of itself. And this figurine is spectacular. It looks amazing, it's very well detailed, and above all, it really improves upon the original Pop Fizz's design. And not to mention, its Wow Power on top of that is very overpowering and adds a lot to the original Pop Fizz's moveset. But the problem is that this isn't the last Pop Fizz we had, because we also had this version of Pop Fizz, Big Bubble Pop Fizz, and it's so unfortunate that Fizzy Frenzy Pop Fizz went through so much of an improvement for the original Pop Fizz, all for Big Bubble Pop Fizz one game later to bring his quality back down again. I do not like Big Bubble Pop Fizz purely because they nerfed his Beast form in favour of making his Beast form infinite. But I don't like that. The whole idea behind his Beast form is that it's so overpowering and he can't hold it very long because of that. So taking that away really takes away from the charm of Pop Fizz. And not to mention, using his trumpet just isn't as good of a design choice and isn't as fun as his potions. It's just not as scientific as of him, really. So above all, Pop Fizz didn't make the list purely because despite his improvements, the Big Bubble version of him, the newest version of him, really did downprove him in my personal opinion. But now, it's time to move on to the real number 1. Now, if this is a Skander I never thought I'd like. I bought him back when Spyro's Adventure was first out, of course, and I just couldn't get into his moveset. All of my friends were saying how overpowering he is, how much of a beast he is, and then when I got to playing him, I'm just like, what's all the fuss about? This character's not that good. And not to mention, he had several iterations later, getting a Series 2, a Series 3, a Mini, and an Eon's Elite, and still there was no improvement in this guy. I did not enjoy him whatsoever, but it turns out that the part of him that I wasn't enjoying was his moveset, because then his Superchargers form came out and I loved it. Sharpshooter Terrafin is by far the most improved character throughout the series because, like I said before, Terrafin I never got into beforehand purely because his moveset was just too boring to me and too generic. He could belly flop and he could punch. Big deal. It wasn't even that powerful. Like, you compared Terrafin to characters like Slam Bam and Igniter, he couldn't hold a candle to him. He was too slow and not powerful enough in comparison. But this form of Sharpshooter Terrafin, however, is so much more fun than that original moveset of his, purely because it's so much more fast-paced. He moves quicker, his attacks deal damage quicker and are more effective in combat, and above all, a more fast-paced character just makes for a more fun character. And so taking a Skander that I absolutely hated before and making me love him to this amount of detailing is what has made Terrafin worthy of #1 on this list right here. So I sure hope you enjoyed the countdown, and if you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more top 10 videos. But until the next one, peace.